You got to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, how you gonna have a dream?
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I am going to try to avoid, as far as possible, the toxicity of some people. And I am going to plunge in with what Patricia TX says. Thank you so much for this. Question. Dearest Lady C, I hear Harry and Meghan bought a house here in Portugal. Can you please comment on this? I really detest the idea of them living here, not to mention how the levels of pollution are going to increase exponentially. Thank you so much. Much love to you. Well, yes, you know, William appears at centre point for the homeless party, and he went down in the most wonderful fashion. I know people who were there. One very good-looking girl said to me, William really looks hot with the beard, because, of course, he's balding, and she thought that the hair down below sort of compensated for the hair above, and how good-looking he is, and blah, blah, and hot. He was there on his own without Catherine, but he went down a real treat, which was lovely. Then, of course, you have the King and Queen arriving in Sydney, and you have People magazine snubbing Harry and Meghan for their 50th anniversary, and instead of the rightful royals, Harry and Meghan, they put a royal corgi with a coronet. Oh dear. How does that work? Oh, I think I know how it works. Dan Wakeford, who used to be at People and who was Meghan's connection, has gone to Us Weekly. That's that Meghan's made one of her other regular progressions from up here to down there. Poor Megsie baby. My heart bleeds for her. Absolutely bleeds for her. And she has done everything in her power to make sure that she would get some column inches. So she appears in public without her wedding and engagement rings. Is there trouble in paradise? That's the question everybody's got to ask. That's the message. Oh, Mutt and Jeff, sorry, Romeo and Juliet are in danger of busting up. Oh, gosh. Let's plant a few more stories. Oh, yes. I've figured out a way to get that schlump to turn over community property to me. Sorry. To turn over inherited property to me into the community chest. That's what I've found. Sorry. I almost got it wrong, but you know, a clever girl like I am, she always gets it right. Always. So, they've managed to leak this story that they are thinking of buying a house in Portugal. Well, there are benefits to having a house in Portugal. They have a Schengen visa, via the golden visa that you get if you, I think it's putting up only 500,000, and you get a golden visa, and you have to have a certain amount of money. I think it's 500, somebody told me. And you have to have it invested in the country, or there are one or two other ways of going about it. And lots of people do it because once you have the golden visa, you don't have to, unlike most other countries. In Portugal, once you're a resident, you don't actually have to live there. You can live wherever you want. But you have access to all of the other European Union states, the Schengen visa. So it's very convenient from that vantage point. Another vantage point from which it is convenient is that Harry and Meghan could then have a European base. And of course, she doesn't need to come to hated England because everybody's so racist and everybody has treated her so abominably. And look at all she sacrificed for us. I mean, just imagine she gave up her wonderful career, all of that for us, and we didn't appreciate it. Aren't we monsters? Yes, we are. Well, then they also have Harry coming out with a surfing video. Not only to show how athletic he is, because they're quite determined, both of them, to present themselves as hot. Hot, hot, hot. But of course, what people haven't realised is that's a paid promotion, I am told. So, Harry is not just deriving the benefit of, oh, look how hot and athletic he is. And he is athletic. Don't know about hot, but athletic he is. And they get paid, or he gets paid. How the mighty have fallen. Promoting surfing videos instead of being a proper prince. And she? Let's see what happens with Portugal. Let's see if this is going to be a latter-day version of Meghan's going to be presenting the Oscar. Meghan's going to be collecting an Emmy. Meghan's going to be graduating from being a demigoddess to a goddess. Let's wait and see. Olivia Schnepf says, "Hi, how are you? Greetings from Lake Constance to you, Lady Colin and the Campbellistas. Greetings to you too, my dear Olivia. Thank you so much for this episode. I would like to ask the following question. A few days ago, there was an interview with Samantha Cohen in the Sunday Times. I thought, is this a not so loose cannon against a certain couple in Montecito? And what do you think about Tom Parker Bowles' cookbook? Was this book written to raise money for a charity or money for Mr. Parker Bowles? What are your thoughts? Thank you and best wishes. Take care. Oh, well, Samantha Cohen would not have given that interview unless it had been cleared with the palace, at the palace, and for the palace. She was making it absolutely clear who is bona fide and who is mala fide. It was a bit of a precursor for the King's Australian trip. And of course, as many of you will know, the King and Queen arrived in Australia yesterday. There was actually a little bit of a hitch when they arrived, because the Queen Elizabeth II its departure had been delayed because of bad weather, and so it was blocking the projectors which were going to be beaming the pictures of Charles and Camilla onto the Sydney Opera House roof. But they got there eventually. And, you know, the King has always loved Australia. He went partly to school in Australia, if I remember correctly. He went to Geelong Grammar School. I'm sure that's in Australia. Hope it's not in New Zealand. My geography isn't always all it ought to be. But wherever he went to school, he's always loved Australia. And the mere fact that he has stopped his treatment for 11 days tells you how important he regards this visit as being. I know that the heads of some of the states were very mean-spirited, and I think one of them had to take a phone call and therefore wouldn't be able to be greeting the King. I think another one had to go to the loo, and so he wouldn't be able to be greeting the King. I think one of them had to scratch his nose, and he wouldn't be able to be greeting the King. There was a sort of across-the-board agreement with all of these second-tier functionaries and officials that they wouldn't be greeting the King because they were far too busy. Oh, I think one also had to scratch his back. Or was it the back of his girlfriend? I've forgotten. But I think we've got the point. Well, he is not letting anything interfere with the positivity that he intends to inject into the visit. And good for him. He's also, I am told, going to enjoy it as much as he can and going to inject as much, not only positivity, but as much of himself. And he's going to be as spiritually resourceful as he can be. Let's see what happens. I mean, Charles and Camilla are older. They're not as good-looking or glamorous as William and Catherine. So will they draw the punters to the extent that William and Catherine would? Let's see. He's the first king to visit Australia. So let's see. But insofar as the cookbook is concerned, Tom Parker Bowles is a private citizen. He can do anything he wants. Oh, he needs to earn a living. His parents don't have any great fortune. His mother will be left comfortably off. But I mean, she's not exactly rolling in megabucks, nor is his father. So he has to work. He works. Good luck to him. I think anybody who works deserves a reward, and I'm sure you agree. I know when I went into the jungle, for instance, people just were perplexed. Why is she not giving the money to charity? Why is she actually going to take the money and spend it on a roof? everybody who has a certain stature is supposed to be rolling in greenbacks, which unfortunately is not true. One wishes it were, but it's not. Now, as for the Samantha Cohen interview, I'm going to reiterate. Accidents like that don't take place. It was a very definite setup. And it shows to what extent Harry and Meghan have worked themselves into the positions of being persona non grata. Sabah says, "Greetings from Lebanon. I know your branch of the Ziadi family is from Shwaifat. Are you aware that the Israelis bombed quite a bit of it into smithereens day before yesterday? I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, as you doubtless appreciate the complexities of our tragic situation as few other people will." Well, Sabah was a very famous Lebanese singer who evidently I look like, so I don't know if this is being droll or what. But yes, the situation is riven with complexity. The Israelis did bomb Shwaifat. There was also talk of them bombing Baalbek. I would sincerely hope they never bomb Baalbek, because that would show a degree of savagery and completely unacceptable, because Baalbek, aside from anything else, is a World Heritage Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I will, to explain to people who don't know the complexity of the situation, which I'm sure the person who's asked this question knows only too well and is trying to elicit out of me. I'll tell you what happened with our family properties in Shwaifat. Last year, a cousin of mine came back from Beirut, and she said that they went and they saw the land we have in Shwaifat, which is owned by all the descendants of my great-grandfather. So when it was destroyed in the Civil War, it remained fallow, so to speak. It was not built upon. Hezbollah took it upon themselves to build on our land. I mean, I know you couldn't make it up, but this is what happened. We owned the land. They just simply built on it. I suppose they realized we were a Christian family and that we were scattered all over the world and that they could get away with it. Well, of course, one would hardly say that we were exactly thrilled that Hezbollah had simply built on our land. So Hezbollah, incidentally, is not popular in Lebanon. I'm yet to meet a Lebanese who actually wants Hezbollah to be in Lebanon. Having said that, people are extremely upset about the fact that the Israelis feel entitled to order the citizens of a foreign country out of their own country so that Netanyahu can bomb where he chooses to bomb. So do you see the complexity? Also, Hezbollah is supported by Iran. Very few Lebanese whether they are Christian, Muslim, Druze, Jewish, very few Lebanese. I've actually never met or heard of a Lebanese who would want to not be rid of Hezbollah. And I don't know any Lebanese who would want this present Iranian regime, a regime which incidentally was allowed to take power as General Hauser, the American general in charge of the American army in Iran, said at the time, "We threw the Shah out like a dead mouse." Proudly said it. You had the British beaming Khomeini's broadcasts from France and making sure that the Iranian people heard what Khomeini said. The height of irresponsibility, I have to tell you, of the Western powers to topple the Shah and allowing a theocracy. And would anybody in Lebanon want to be subject to the influence of the Iranian regime? Absolutely not a chance. Nevertheless, there is a widespread disapproval of the fact that their sovereign state is being attacked by a neighboring state. So, what are my thoughts on it? It would be nice if Lebanon could be rid of Hezbollah. But is the price of getting rid of Hezbollah that Lebanon be destroyed? Or what would be preferable? A two-state solution imposed upon the Israelis as well as the Palestinians and policed by the rest of the world. Do you seriously think that if that were implemented, that there would be the loss of life that there is at the moment and the loss of property? Because I can tell you there would not be. So, in a world of imperfection and imperfect solutions, I will take the imposition of a two-state system over anything else, and certainly over the land of some of my forefathers being ravished, to get rid of an entity that actually none of us wants in our country. Let's put it like that. I hope that answers the question. It is extremely complex. There is no easy solution. And there will be no easy solution. The crisis in the Middle East has been going on for 76 years now. You would have imagined that people would begin to get the message that they're doing something wrong and they need to do something right. But of course, as long as there's a great deal of money to be made, which there is, the warfare and the chaos, the loss of life, the destruction of property, and the violation of people's rights, and the breaches of human rights will continue. I am horrified at the way things are going, and I am firmly in favor of peace and nothing else. But of course, I'm not going to be making any money out of selling arms. and destroying countries, then giving contracts to my buddies to rebuild the countries that I've destroyed. The whole thing is shocking, shocking. Lawrence Terlek says, Lady C does show her biases for the rich and powerful. That, of course, is a crack as a result of my previous video when I interviewed Dorothy Ottey, who incidentally people have been trying to bully her, and people have been trying to bully me as well. I have given no interviews and said nothing. I don't know the Harrises. I know the white Harrises in Jamaica, but I don't know the brown Harrises. And insofar as I'm aware, there are no black Harrises. And I'm sorry, I'm not American, and I'm not using American vernacular. I am Jamaican, out of many one people. And in Jamaica, we have white people, we have brown people, we have black people, we have yellow people, and we have pink, maybe even green people. And we are not racist enough to think that anybody who has one drop of sub-Saharan African blood is black. That is Jim Crow racism, and I'm not buying it, and I'm not going to be bullied into it either. So let me make that point clearly, because by and large, most of the comments have been extremely favourable. Most people have understood that I was asked to ask questions. I did. I let somebody speak, and I gave no opinion of any consequence because I don't know the people involved. But somebody who does know them gave a truthful opinion, which seems to have offended some people. Since when was the fact that somebody was mixed race offensive? That's the height of racism as far as I'm concerned. And as for this crap from this Lawrence Terlek saying Lady C does show her biases for the rich and powerful, I suppose you're trying to imply, Lawrence Terlek, that by asking a question that people asked me to ask and getting the truthful answer as opposed to a tissue of lies, that I am showing my bias for whom? For whom? The rich and powerful. Which rich and powerful are you referring to? Are you referring to Trump? Or are you referring to the fact that for 12 of the last 16 years, the Democrats have been in power? So that means that if I'm biased in favor of the rich and powerful, I'm biased in favor of the Democrats. You see, all of a sudden things don't quite stack up and add up, do they? I mean, such a stupid comment to have made as well. Jamie says, I assume the next video will be on Trump's integrity and lack thereof. My goodness, you would think the mess continually going on in English politics would keep you plenty busy. There, in prison. Oh, well. Thanks for that crack. First of all, I wouldn't be doing a video on Trump's integrity or lack thereof. I don't recall Trump had Jamaican grandmother and grandfather. I don't remember that Trump had a Jamaican father or even a Jamaican mother, and that I was asked as a Jamaican to comment on his Jamaican heritage. I don't recall that, so keep your cracks to yourself. Now, as for the rest of it, let me make up one or 2 points. First of all, the United States of America, what goes on there is of worldwide interest, because you may have the right to vote as Americans. We don't. But American foreign policy is very much assertive, and it is very much in favor of the interests of the United States of America above all else. Now, that is as it ought to be. I'm not criticizing American foreign policy for putting America's interests first. I will, however, point out that many of the European nations, our own included, they have in the last 32, 33, 34 years opposed, whenever they have opposed American foreign policy, they have gradually thrown in their hand with the United States of America, sometimes to the detriment of their own country's interests. So, yes, we're all interested in what's happening in America because, as the saying goes, you sneeze when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. Well, if I have a handkerchief and want to put it to my nose and avert my head, that's my right, and I fully intend to do it. Who doesn't like it can lump it. It's as simple as that. So I hope I make my position clear there. I don't know why Americans would feel that they have the right to tell Europeans what to do and to interfere with European politics to the extent that, look at what's happening in the look at what's happening in Europe at the moment. Look at the bloodbath that's going on in Ukraine. People are being, young men, if you don't know it, are being hauled out of their homes and out of their offices and dragooned into the army to fight a war that Zelensky and Putin tried to bring to an end some years ago, and that buffoon Boris Johnson, at the behest of who? Because it wasn't at his own behest alone, went and interfered with the solution. Tell that to the Ukrainians who are losing their lives and having their country destroyed. And you then have the unmitigated gall to tell me that I shouldn't have an opinion. And I should limit my opinion to this country. And yes, you're absolutely right. What is going on here is an equal disgrace. In the last few days, we have had Lucy Connolly, a Conservative councillor's wife, imprisoned for 31 months because she posted a comment for a few minutes stating an opinion. She didn't encourage to do something. She didn't suggest that they do it. She said if they did it, she didn't mind. And she's gone to prison for 31 months. A woman with an unblemished record, with just an opinion, with children, a childminder, with a husband. Keir Starmer clears out the prisons to send somebody who had maybe possibly misguided, and quite frankly, I don't see why people shouldn't be entitled to their opinions even if I don't agree with them. And she certainly wasn't calling anyone to arms. She was simply saying that she didn't like the people and she didn't care what happened to them, and particularized if it happened, she wouldn't care. That's hardly a call to arms. of course, her legal representatives pled guilty, thinking they would be able to make light of it, and the court would. And they don't understand what's going on in this country, because our civil liberties are also seriously being challenged at the moment. So we've had that case in the last day or two. And then we have another case, Adam Smith Connor, a British Army veteran who has been convicted of a thought crime. He stood outside of an abortion clinic, as he has done before. He silently prayed, so nobody who looked at him could actually tell what he was doing. He wasn't on his knees, but he had done this before because he had lost a son to that process, I think 22 years before. And he used to go and he used to inform them that he was going. This time he was arrested. If he hadn't been honest about what was in his head and had just stood out there, they couldn't have done anything. And they shouldn't have done anything, because he didn't do anything. It was in his head. You can't commit a crime in your head. It is an absolute outrage that this is going on in this country. He was condemned because Judge Orla Austin, a district judge, the lowest form of judge. So I hope this is appealed, and that the Court of Appeal actually understands that this is George Orwell brought to life. She criticised his actions as deliberate. There's nothing wrong in being anti-something. He wasn't making a public protest and making a fuss the way, may I point out, both the pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli demonstrators in this country do. Half the time breaking the law, both of them. Nothing happens to them. But he ends up with a conditional discharge. Shocking. Shocking, shocking, shocking. So, yes, you're absolutely right. What is going on in this country is a disgrace as well. But it's not only in this country. Don't kid yourself. It's in other countries as well. And if you think that I have the right to disapprove of what's happening in this country, but I don't have the right to disapprove of what's happening in your country, when your leaders' actions are affecting me. And let's remember, if what is happening in Europe continues at the rate it's happening, the Russians have made it clear that they can bomb us in Britain. We'll fry. I don't think anybody in Wichita, Kansas is going to be frying. And why would we be frying? Because we are going along with a series of policies that are ultimately possibly going to lead to the Third World War. And while we're on the subject of the Third World War, we just lost General Sir Mike Jackson, who was the British commanding officer in Kosovo at the time of the Yugoslav Civil War, and the American General Clark wanted him to commit an act which would have involved the world. And he said, I'm not starting the Third World War to oblige you, and point blank refused to implement the order. And Clark, who was a 4-star general, tried to say to him, well, you're only a 3-star general. You've got to do it. And he point blank refused to do it and said, no, I am a 3-star general and I have the right to tell you no. Your judgment is flawed and I'm not doing it. We need more people like Sir Mike Jackson around. We need people who will actually understand that actions have consequences, and that we live in a world that everybody should live in with harmony and peace and respect for each other. Not some bully boys deciding that they are going to bully other people. So I think I've made myself very clear on this point. And now I'll continue with something rather less upsetting. Charlie Cole says, in Jamaica, brown people are not black. In the USA, brown people are black. And anyone who is 75% white with a brown mother is black in the eyes of racists. Absolutely right. Thank you for that, Charlie Cole. Both Dorothy and I have received flack for her reminiscences of her childhood, which 90% or 95% of the people thought were lovely and charming. And I showed her a photograph that was published in the United States of America and asked, is this Miss Beryl? And she said, no, it's not. Is she supposed to lie to facilitate people? And as she said, she feels she has been bullied. Well, I've been bullied as well, but I'm not taking it. And yes, in Jamaica, brown people are brown, black people are black. When you go into Bloomingdale's or Bergdorf's and you say, oh, I like that dress in black, and they present it to you in brown, you're going to be pretty cheesed off. But if you want it in brown and they present it to you in black, you're going to be equally cheesed off. And if you say, well, brown is the same as black, and they say, no, it isn't, no, it isn't, and it isn't. I mean, I would like to know why American people who are caught up in the race row don't get the fact that they are playing by Jim Crow rules, because that's what they're doing. Jamaicans aren't playing by Jim Crow rules. We never had Jim Crow. And I am not being bullied into submission where I am going to concede that brown is black. Brown is brown and black is black. And who doesn't like it can lump it as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not going to be changing my opinion. And I don't care what's, in America that is. I don't care. It's Jim Crow racism. It is racist of the highest order. It's anti-white and it's anti-black. It's anti-everything. It is disgusting. Jacqueline J.S. says, but she, Kamala, definitely has black blood. She's quoting me. This, I feel so vindicated after hearing Lady C say this, because it was so obvious she has black in her. Maybe not a lot, but it showed through. certain people owe me an apology for deleting my comments about this. Yes, I mean, it's to me astonishing that the people who think they are being anti-racist are being so racist that they are actually jumping on the bandwagon and beating up people for just speaking the truth. One of which is if you're brown, you're brown, and if you're black, you're black, and you're not black if you're brown, and you're not brown if you're black. And yes, I have stated all along that to my certain knowledge, Kamala Harris has Negro blood, sub-Saharan African blood. Call it what you may, black blood, but she's not black. And who doesn't like it can just lump it. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous that people think that they have the right to say that black is brown and brown is black, and that if I, as a citizen of a country whose national motto is out of many one people, want to go by a far better, more constructive system, that I should be abused and bullied? I mean, are you, these people who take this position, are they nuts or are they just idiots? Ann Peterson says, Lady C, why do you say that Kamala definitely has black blood? All we know for certain is that her mother is Indian. Her father is said to be a Jamaican, Irish communist. Well, he is a Jamaican. He certainly has Marxist ideas. He obviously has Irish blood as well. He still has black blood in him. I'm a Jamaican. I can pluck my black. It's as simple as that. Well, having said that, I didn't realize that Meghan had black blood. So, for me to see that Donald Harris has black blood means he's got plenty more than Meghan. And it's certainly more obvious. It couldn't be more obvious. Look at the man. He's brown-skinned. He has features with a sub-Saharan African cast, and he had kinky hair. If that doesn't make you partly black, I don't know what does. So, yeah, I'm standing by my observation, Ann Peterson. That's why I say it. She definitely has black blood because that's her father. And he definitely has black blood. So, I don't know why there's such a big debate and fuss about the fact that the woman has black blood. She has black blood. Obviously less than some people would like her to have. But since they're the ones who abide by the Jim Crow rules, what do they care whether it's 1/10 or 132nd? One drop is all that counts where they're concerned. T. Louise says, look up Edris Allen. This is who Candace Owens thinks is really Kamala's grandmother. I have to say, I saw the video that Candace Owens did on my interview with Dorothy, and I rather like Kamala. Sorry, not Kamala. I rather like Kamala Harris, that's going to say. I have nothing against Kamala Harris. I don't know the woman. I was going to say, I rather like Candace Owens is what I really meant. And I'm not changing this because it actually shows my true feelings. That, in fact, I'm completely unprejudiced with no axe to grind. So that's a slip of the tongue that's definitely staying in. Candace Owens is not Jamaican. The American black experience is entirely different from the Jamaican and West Indian black experience. And Candace Owens is one half of a mixed race union. She has mixed race children. So she is, let's put it this way, she's recent to the game, or she's recent to the party. It's not the same as if you are Jamaican. It's just not. And I'm not saying that for any reason except that we in Jamaica were at the forefront of race relations at a time where black, brown, yellow, pink and green and white were all mixing up together socially. The United States had segregation. So the whole situation is different. And it so happens that Candace Owens is using forensic techniques, and she's evidently doing what it would appear a pretty Sherlockian job, but she doesn't always, of what I am told, and if Edris Allen, Lady Allen, her husband was the first black knight in Jamaica. I remember Lady Allen. I knew Lady Allen. Lady Allen was also the first dark-skinned member of the Women's Club in Jamaica. The Women's Club in Jamaica, and you can Google all of this if you want, and to what extent it's accurate, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you what happened, because my mother was one of the presidents of the Women's Club. The Women's Club was a pretty much white club they had some fair-skinned ladies of colour as well, but they were either white or, as they say in Jamaica, nearly white, except for Lady Allen. Lady Allen was a revered figure in Jamaica. The idea that she would have been Camilla's grandmother may play well in America. Take it from me, it would not have happened in Jamaica. First of all, Lady Allen was extremely respectable. And respectable women did not give birth to illegitimate children with strange men. It just didn't happen. Lady Allen had a totally impeccable reputation. I knew her all my life. She also was a great friend of Lady Huggins, Molly Huggins, who was the wife of the governor of Jamaica, Sir John Huggins. Again, I knew the Hugginses. They were friends of my parents. I know her granddaughter. Her granddaughter's a friend of mine. Her granddaughter lives near me. I'm sorry, none of, the idea that Lady Allen could possibly have been Camilla's grandmother is not sensible in the Jamaican context. In the American context, it might be, but in the Jamaican context, it is not. Jamaica is a totally, properly, its own culture, it has its own cultural identity. Jamaica has produced one of the great schools of music of the 20th century, reggae. Just remember that, Little Jamaica. So Little Jamaica has its own absolutely unique and very definite identity. Now, I don't know whether Candace Owens has said this or somebody thought she said it, but if she said it, she is mistaken. With the best will in the world, she is mistaken. It is my considered opinion of what I know, and I don't know that much, but I think I know enough to have a feel of what has happened, is that Camilla's grandfather had 3 outside children with Miss Beryl, who was a respectable country woman, who had her own business. They had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, and he then married Vioris Lawrence, who was a white woman from St. Elizabeth. I have explained this before in terms of the various gradations and stratifications of Jamaican society. And they were indubitably married, and notwithstanding the fact that Kamala's father has said that his parents were married, there's no proof that they were married. And it is my considered opinion that in the absence of a marriage certificate and a divorce decree, because Jamaica has records. Jamaica is not some little backwater that they wrote things on leaves and they blew away in a breeze. I'm sorry, Jamaica was a proper country and still is. She was, and he was the product of an outside union. And I have no doubt that Dorothy, who grew up beside Miss Beryl, or for part of her childhood grew up beside Miss Beryl, because it's Dorothy's family village, really, and Beryl was the recent addition to it. So Beryl came into it. And at that time, he was married to Vioris. He can't have been married to Vioris if he was already married to Beryl. And in Jamaica, there was nothing that unusual about people having unofficial unions. Many people had unofficial unions. When you had an official union, it usually was because marriage was also about status. So it's not surprising to me, as a Jamaican, that old Mr. Harris would have married a woman of higher status, but had 3 children prior to that with a woman of lesser status, but still a degree of status. And she was clearly a respectable woman, and she clearly enjoyed a measure of prosperity, but he didn't marry her. And that tells me that she was not of the same social standing as Vioris. It's as simple as that. We don't have to go looking for Lady Allen. And I don't know, as I say, whether this came from Candace Owens or not, because people often do get things slightly wrong on YouTube and generally in life. And maybe T. Louise has got it wrong. But if Candace Owens got it wrong, it's wrong. And I am going to end with Robin Robinson, who says, "The great Martin Luther King Jr. left us with this prayer, which is timeless, but also most apt for these times. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." God bless you, dear Lady C, and your fur girls. best wishes are my sentiments exactly. I do wish people would be just colourblind and leave out this whole nonsense about colour. I mean, it is just a waste of everybody's time and energy. What counts in a politician is their ability. And I've got news for you. I don't mind if politicians lie. In my experience, they all lie. I'm yet to meet a politician that I would believe anything he or she said unless I double and triple checked it. That naive I'm not. Politicians are often opportunistic, and if they are effective politicians, and if they're going to be effective leaders, they need to understand that at times you have to lie. Of course, it depends what lie you're telling and why you're telling it. But I am no great moralist in terms of leadership. I think political leaders need to be principled. They need to have the interests of their country primary, and then secondarily, they need to have the interests of the world. I'm afraid that's sorely lacking in many countries nowadays and has been, in my lifetime, ever increasingly on the decline. Ever since the First World War, Western society, at the very moment that it has progressed socially and in terms of living standards, it has regressed in terms of ethics and morality. And we are in serious danger as a society of losing all our advantages because of what is essentially our greed and our refusal to understand where our duty lies, not only to ourselves, but to others. And who doesn't like that? As far as I'm concerned, doesn't have to like it. That's my feeling on the subject. And I think if more people felt the way I do, and more people actually bothered to read history, they would understand why it is absolutely imperative, especially nowadays, that we aim for peace and civility, and that you cannot have civilization and civility without having respect for people who disagree with you, without people who are different from you, without people whose interests conflict with yours, and you then have to rub along together and respect each other's right to exist. A lot of this is sorely lacking in this world, especially in our world. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. Please keep the questions and comments coming in, and let's try to make it a little bit lighter. Do please ask me anything you want about Harry and Meghan and any of that more lightweight stuff. I mean, if you want me to continue in the vein of more gravitas, I'm prepared to do so up to a point. But it's really pretty taxing, I don't mind telling you. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. Godspeed and goodbye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.